Hey, InterVarsity Alumni. This is After 4, your podcast for navigating life after graduation. This is both an exciting and potentially tricky transition that you're making, and you might feel a little unsure about the coming weeks and months. We're here to provide you with expert advice, practical skills, and plenty of encouragement as you learn how to keep saying yes to Jesus in your new context. This is After 4, and this podcast is for you, alumni. What's up, alumni? Welcome to After 4, your podcast for navigating life after graduation. I'm your host and guide, John Steele. Today, we're wrapping up our series about the relational transitions that happen after graduation. We've talked about a biblical perspective on our need for relationships. We've talked about ending well with friends on campus and making friends after graduation. And we've talked about how our relationships change with parents, whether you're moving back in with mom and dad or moving away from home after graduation. But there's one more relationship that we want to cover in this series, and that's for those of you who are looking toward marriage after graduation. You're engaged, you're planning the wedding, and you're anticipating getting married in the coming months. Well, today we're chatting with Sam and Ashlin, two InterVarsity alumni from Minnesota State Mankato, and they are just a few months away from celebrating their first anniversary. And Sam and Ashlin are here today to share a little bit about their experiences navigating the transition from dating and engagement to getting married after graduation. They're a couple amazing people, and I really enjoyed getting to hear some of their story, and I'm sure that you will too. Here's Sam and Ashlin, and this one's for you, alumni. Ashlin, Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks
it.
for having us.
Of course. I'm really looking forward to this. Hey, we're going to talk about marriage, talk about life as a married couple after graduation. I know that you are both like kind of in different places as far as how you would term your after graduation life.
Right.
And we'll get into some of that. But generally, what it is like to be in this phase of life, married, and the things that you're learning and that you can start imparting to people who are just a few steps behind you. So don't feel like you have to be experts, but just people who have an informed experience. So that's what we're going to talk about. But before we get any further into that, would you just take turns introducing yourselves or introducing each other if somebody says something that you think they should have said?
Oh, I like that.
Throw it in there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Well, I can start. My name is Ashlin, and I am currently a first-year grad student at MSU. I'm studying speech therapy, and and I am married to Sam, which is such a joy. And I guess I really enjoy running, just spending time with friends, all those things. Recently, I've been really getting into making sourdough bread. I know that's kind of a trend right now, and I'm definitely hopping on that trend. So we've been having sourdough just about every week since October.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, you're not wrong with that.
Yeah,
and it's still so good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've tried and failed multiple times to get into the sourdough game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's either just not for me or I need somebody to actually stand next to me and walk me through the process. I don't know. But on my own, I'm rubbish at it.
Well, John, we could have a baking day.
Okay. I'll do it.
InterVarsity sourdough bread baking day.
Yes.
That would be amazing.
I'm totally down.
Well, you did not plug that you were also a student athlete at MSU. So I will shamelessly plug Ashlin that she was a walk-on to the cross-country and track team and competed for MSU as well, which is another feature that I think you should know about her. But yeah, my name's Sam. I'm also a MSU alumni. I did my undergraduate degree in exercise science, and then I also did get my master's in exercise physiology. So pretty much just the advanced degree of what I did for my undergrad. And I actually work for MSU right now as an admissions rep. So kind of wonky because that is not related to my field. But, long story short, that's just a connection I had coming out of school. I was actually a tour guide in the admissions office, and that's actually, we can get to it later, but that's actually where Ashlin and I met.
Nice.
As tour guides, and just had a connection post-graduation. That was a good opportunity to work for MSU, and hopefully one day as life goes on and whatever, wherever we end up, hopefully get in the field one day. But I'm enjoying it right now, and married life is great with Ashlin, and so far so good. Still married, so
Nice.
that's a win.
Hey, all right.
That's right.
Yeah. You're still within your first year, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We did pass the 6-month mark.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, I was really excited that you asked us to come. We, like you said, definitely are no experts on marriage, but we're happy to share what we've learned so far.
Yeah, we're here, baby.
That's great. That's great. You both are post at least one graduation. You're in grad school, Ashlin. You're post undergrad and grad school, but you've experienced some sort of like big transition in life, and post that transition have gotten married. Was it like shortly after graduating from undergrad then that you got? It would have been like the next summer, right?
It was. Yeah, it was just a couple months after, or like 1 month after, really.
1 month after. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So like right after graduating from college, you're married. And okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we're going to talk about just some of the relational transitions that have gone on. So let's see here. From the time that you were like engaged that you were dating to engaged to now married, as you stepped into that phase of life of married, like how has the way that you relate to one another transitioned in that time? Like, what are you starting to notice that's different in how you engage with each other and communicate?
I would say, moving in together and just, like signing a lease, moving in together, all that is super exciting. But eventually once the dust settles, and that was us living together for the first time,
Yeah.
there are just things that you discover about the other person naturally, which is great. That's one of the beautiful things about marriage, but it's, you tend to find, out a lot of things that you didn't know previously, which is, obviously I think every couple goes through that, and, including us. And, one of the things I think we both became aware of is just, I want to say like different tendencies or just things that the other person does based off of maybe their personality, or even, just being real, like just sins, just things that maybe that we're still wrestling with, or things that we're still growing in, are exposed. I mean, they're right in front of your face because you're living with that other person now. And so I think one of the things that was really big for me, and just one thing that I had to internalize, is Ashlin is super easy to live with, for one. Nice. So I think I'm very blessed and fortunate that way. And I think we had a really good transition, but also just the moments and the times where logics didn't line up, I think is the best way to explain it. I think Tim Keller in The Meaning of Marriage, that was a really formative book for me before we got married. He kind of mentions that, you and your spouse, you guys will go at things differently. Like Ashlin might have one way that she washes the dishes and I have another way. And when the logics don't line up, then it can be a point of conflict. And then, that's where the forgiveness and the grace comes in, and things like that. And I think it's small, mundane tasks like washing dishes, or big things, or things that require maybe more attention and bigger conversations. But that's one thing I think relationally, and just trying to relate to each other, is, we have the same goal for things. We want to get the same stuff accomplished in life, but we go at it different ways, and that's totally okay. And I think, again, that's where you find a lot of the beauty in it. So
Yeah, I would go off of that. Just really talking about like the beauty of it, and just how marriage like challenges you from just what we've experienced so far, like in a good way. Because, you're living with the other person. Like, obviously, we've both had roommates before, but you're with each other so much more, and you're like a partnership on everything. And I like to joke a lot. Sam's actually a lot cleaner than I am, which I really admire. But it's also given me a lot of opportunities like for growth, and just to, put my things aside and say like, okay, I'm going to like change my ways, like I'm going to be more tidy because I know that it like helps Sam out. And so I think marriage just gives you so many ways to serve one another. I think that's something I've really noticed, is there's always an opportunity to serve, even if there's not a chore to be done, like you can serve one another whenever. And so I think that's been just something really cool that has come with marriage, is just learning how our tendency is selfishness, and we are prone to sin. We can't deny that, but it's how can we work on that? How can we grow from it? What is God teaching us through this? And so it is a beautiful thing how I think marriage challenges you in all the good ways.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember those not just the early days of marriage, the present days of marriage. Caitlin and I will be celebrating our 10-year anniversary in June. Nice. Just a few days after you all celebrate your first year anniversary, we'll celebrate our 10th.
Oh, wow.
And,
cool.
And it's the same thing, that marriage is one of those mirrors that gets held up in front of you that you're like, whoa, I think about myself a lot.
Yeah.
And it's revealed to you that you have a way of thinking that you have had, like that, whether it was from your family or experiences you had with your family, that you're like, I'm not going to be like that. So you've like sort of ingrained this new way of thinking in your life. And then suddenly you are met with somebody else who has a different way of thinking. And like, I like that you said different logic, because it's super easy for us to think like one of us is logical, the other one is illogical.
Yep.
And to think like, no, probably on both sides, there is emotion that's moving you one way or another in the decisions that you're making. But also on both sides, there's thoughtfulness that's gone into the decisions that you've made and the reasons why you do those things. And so what does that look like to put yourself in the shoes of the other person and say, okay, what is the logic that you're using to make this decision? And, how do those things line up with each other? And yes, that you're just faced with many of those moments. Can I put you on the spot here and say, are there any comedic moments? I'll ask, is there anything funny in particular that's happened that, it's all good to go, but has there been a funny moment of that happening in the past where you've been like, oh yeah, this was one thing that like we had to have a conversation about, and now we can laugh about it, that you can share?
Do you have an example?
One thing, it's kind of laughable now, and I think we've done a lot better job with it, is like Ashlin mentioned my cleanliness. So like, one thing that's big for me is like everything has like a home or like a spot. And so like when we we got married, and then how it worked out was we moved into your old roommates, or your place that you had with your roommates, because they were all gone for the summer. And so we just had that place to ourselves, and it worked out to be living there. So I actually just essentially moved into Ashlin's apartment for a little while until we moved into our rental home. And so I was going into Ashlin's territory where it's not that bad, but like I just got a ton of like stress and anxiety, because Ashlin like she keeps like a clean room and stuff like that, but I just remember like looking under your bed and this random stuff that was just like on the floor. Nothing was in like a box, and like, it was just sitting on the floor. And Sam would just like looking at the other like drawers and nooks and crannies. Are just like, man, this is not how I operate. Like my brain would not know where anything is. And I think when we moved in, there was just like, there wasn't much tension about it, but just like figuring out like we can't put everything under the bed. We just cannot do that. And so, and over time it's been fine, but it was just funny to me.
I think that goes right along with what we were talking about, because in my mind, I'm like, well, I know where everything is. Like everything's got a home and it's right where it is,
I was like,
but that's something that I was like, okay, I can change this, So that was a good example.
Kudos to you. I could never, but
did that feel like something that was easier to do, like the going from moving into the apartment that she had known and had like that was home, going that transition compared to both of you moving into a space that neither of you had lived in? Was that easier to sort of like figure out, this is where stuff goes, this is how we operate in a new space? Or was it just as challenging as that first time moving in together after getting married?
I think it was a lot easier. Yeah. And then it was just, we had people's stuff too within the apartment. So it was like, we only have this small little area for Sam and Ashlin. It was essentially one room that we had to put two people in, which was a challenge, big challenge. I remember that. And there was a lot of purging going on of just stuff we didn't need and donating. And we were just really excited to set up our own home. I think we could have maybe talked more initially, because I think we did have to go back and be like, oh, this stuff should go over here and not under the bed or a random drawer. But I think it went really smooth for us.
Yeah.
That's Caitlin and I, when we got married initially, we did the same thing. Like we moved into the apartment that I had been living in for a number of years, and that was not what we wanted to do. We had wanted to go to a place that was totally fresh for both of us. So it felt like there's no rhythms that have existed here. We're building them all together. And so that was interesting, sort of like, no, that's not where that goes. Like I would come home sometimes and Caitlin was like, all right, I have rearranged where things are in the kitchen. It's like, and I'm like, so then for the next 3 months, I'm opening the wrong drawer for the things that I like, oh no, that's over here now. And just one of those, like, I'm sure this is actually more efficient that you've thought through. That's like just the way that her mind works. But you have those moments of being like, no, this is the rhythm that I've been in. Now, how do I operate in this way? And that's not just for where things go in your home. Like, that's just for your relationship in general. Like, this is what it's been like to operate as a single person or as a dating or engaged person. And now, okay, we gotta sort through these rhythms together as what it means to be married. And not just married for now, but like, we're building rhythms for life.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. That will be an interesting thing. I also from Tim Keller, InterVarsity alum, if I can just throw that out there as well.
Right.
Yeah.
But also from Tim Keller, I remember him saying that when you get married, you are not just marrying the person that you're with today. You are marrying who they will be in 5 years, who they'll be in 10 years, 20 years. And like, because we shift and we grow, and I like music that I didn't like 10 years ago, and Caitlin's like, I don't like listening to music with you anymore. Right? And there are times that I feel bad that I'm like, man, if Caitlin knew 10 years ago who I would be today, would she have still said yes? And it is just interesting, like, you sort of move and shift and grow together.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What are there like new? So I'm like just going totally off script here based on like where we're going. Okay. Are there man, there's a couple of things that I want to ask about, and I also want to be thoughtful of our time here. But that's like, I mean, as you think about new rhythms together, like, are there new ways that you have come up with, like, oh wow, here's some of the new ways that we relate to each other that we didn't in the past, or things that like, I don't know. Is there anything that sparks for you of like, here are just new life rhythms that we're developing together and that we're just figuring out how to navigate? There's some challenges, but there's also some wins that we're experiencing. Like, as you're building a life together, what are the things that are coming up that you're having to navigate?
Yeah, I would say the thing that came to my mind when you asked that is, we're kind of in a unique situation with Ashlin still being in school, and I'm working full time. So, I mean, I work 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, right? Whereas Ashlin she's a full-time grad student, so that creates a lot of scheduling differences. And I remember one thing that I just did on a regular basis before we were married, and, through our engagement, just, living with roommates, is like my devotional time I typically did in the evenings. Just that was kind of how I wound down my day and stuff like that. And like, I woke up early before class and whatever, and I had time to myself, but I just used it just kind of enjoy my breakfast and talk to my roommates and whatnot. Yeah. But now, especially just being in the swing of work and school during the semester, oftentimes like being in a devotional together is hard if you don't do it together in the mornings. And so that was something that, it's a small change, but it was big for me, because that was kind of something that we saw the need of, like, okay, Ashlin has homework in the evenings, and oftentimes our mornings are free, as I go, or before I go to work, before Ashlin goes to school or starts her homework, like, we have that allotted time together in the morning completely free where we could do, in this case, our devotionals together. And I also just realized that I like my evenings open now after work, and I like getting stuff done in the morning. So I think that took us a little bit to kind of figure out, like, what was the best case scenario. But now, like, utilizing and taking advantage of as many mornings together as we can, I think has been a cool shift to see. And it's like, the mornings are one of my favorite things now, just because they're quiet. It's just us, and we get to have that time together. So I think that was one for me.
Yeah, that is kind of a newer rhythm for us. I mean, kind of with the new year, we started doing it in the mornings together. Before that, we kind of had this night devotional that we were doing, which was really good too. But I think just with the inconsistency of nights, sometimes InterVarsity can go long, which is great because we love going there. Yeah. But yeah, I was just like not as consistent, I would say. And so being able to like do that in the mornings together has been really sweet. And I'll also say Sam is really good about going to bed early. And so that's been a new rhythm for me. Yeah. And, sometimes that I get a little off track, like if I'm cramming for a test that I haven't prepared well for, I'll like either stay up later or I'll just be like, have my iPad in bed, like scrolling through my notes. But yeah, that's been a new rhythm for me too. Just going to bed earlier, I guess, which I really enjoy. And so I think it's kind of cool, again, just like with marriage, how I think those good habits that I think both of us have, we both have different habits, how those good habits can rub off on one another and, just in a way like sharpening each other. And
What is that like? I mean, so we've been a part of InterVarsity community. So your faith has been sort of like enmeshed in other people's faith, being a part of a community like that. But you're talking about like devotional rhythms together and like sort of realigning how your day flows so you can do those things together. I mean, so just thinking about that process, even in and of itself, of like your faith enmeshing and growing alongside of and intertwined with somebody else's faith. Like, what has that been like kind of growing together as like faithfully pursuing Jesus as a married couple and not just as an individual who's part of a community?
I think it's been really cool so far. I think just with being able to do our devotionals alongside each other. What we're doing right now is we're reading the same passages, just individually on our own and, like making our notes and things like that. And then we'll sometimes just kind of debrief after or just talk about anything that stood out to us. And I think that's led to some really good, deep conversations, deep questions about the faith and not always with answers, which you're not always going to get,
Totally.
But yeah, it's been cool to just be growing together.
Yeah, I think I just remember kind of when I took my faith on as my own and like owned it. Like it wasn't like my parents' faith or like my faith from growing up, but it's like mine. Like I'm an individual now, and I own it. And I think that was a short couple of years until obviously I met Ashlin and we got married, where I lived in that, and it was a unique transition in the sense of like even through dating and engagement, like we did devotional times together, try to do that on a regular basis. But it was still just Sam and just Ashlin, but now it's Sam and Ashlin together.
Yeah.
Where like, it's a new faith. It's like Sam and Ashlin's faith is one. So I think for me, like the biggest thing has been like staying in that devotional time. That's been really, really sweet. Like you said, it's led to some like deeper conversations. I mean, I bought it at Barnes & Noble. It's called The Ultimate Guide to the Bible. It's just like something we pull out every now and again, especially because we're reading the Bible and it's like a chronological order Bible plan. So we're in Old Testament right now. And it's like,
totally.
Oh, man. Daily, you got to pull that thing out and just like try to learn and study and grow together. And I think it's been really fun. And I think it's a very delicate thing. I think one thing I've realized is like, if schedules fill up or we get busy or we miss a day or two or however many, like that has a toll on it too. So I think it's been creating a lot of awareness of just like, even if it's something that, maybe it's just like something, lack of communication where we didn't plan a devotional time for like a Saturday morning or whatever, like that. That's something that I think we're growing in right now, is just trying to be as consistent as possible. Yeah. Trying to make it a daily practice, just like any other sort of spiritual discipline too, which has been really cool. And I think too, we've talked a lot about our just personal faith as well, or just like different things we want to grow in. Like for me, I just want to pray more, be more in just prayer throughout the day, my work day when I'm not with Ashlin, or just different daily stresses that come up, like bringing those to the Lord more often. And so just trying to encourage each other a lot, I think is really special, because that's a sweet opportunity that you have in marriage. I mean, to kind of just lay your heads on the pillow at the end of every day and just kind of talk about it before you pray, before you go to sleep together. And it's been amazing to kind of watch each other grow. And I think just also challenge each other often too. And to just kind of live it out.
Yeah, definitely. I think too, it's just really cool to see how it has united us. I just feel like so much closer to Sam when we are, like in our rhythms, and doing that consistently and like praying together consistently. And I think that's just the power of the Holy Spirit. Like God's word is alive and active, and I think we really get to see that when we consistently invest in his word and read his word together. And spend that time in prayer together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. I really wanted to also ask about like, how is relating to friends changed? How is relating to your family members and in-laws changed as a result of being married? But we just don't have the time to go there. Sorry, everybody. That would have been really awesome to hear. But instead, I'm going to jump to like, if you could give a word or two of practical advice to somebody that is, 8 months behind you in this process. They're like looking towards graduation and they know like, okay, my fiance and I, we are getting married like shortly after graduation, sometime in the next year. Like, what advice would you give to them to be able to have a healthy, thriving start, just based on what you've experienced thus far? That's all that you can give to us, and we will receive that.
I would say you can prepare, and that's really good. I mean, you can read all the books on marriage and all that sort of stuff too. But it's really one of those things you'll never be truly ready for. And so I think something that helped me is just going in with a really, really open mindset and just taking whatever comes at you, because you could get married, it could go really well. You could stay in the honeymoon phase for 5 years. It could be all sunshine and rainbows, or you can get married and realize like, wow, this is a lot tougher than I think. And so I think just being aware that you are starting your life with someone, and that's a super big transition for the both of you. There's a lot of things that you'll react to in different ways and handle differently. And so keep a super open mind, and you will be, I think, fascinated with what marriage is and what marriage isn't, because I definitely had just preconceived things in my head of what it was going to be like, when we did get engaged, and just, planning the wedding, all the excitement that surrounds that and things like that. But then, you have the wedding day, and then you celebrate, you have a honeymoon, and then you kind of come back to earth and you realize it's just like, okay, this is back to normal. It's just Sam and Ashlin. We're just living life together.
Yeah.
And that's it. And, it's been really sweet. But I think there's just so much excitement around the day or that season of life. All your friends and family are excited for you. But just realize that it's going to bring new things. And that's totally what it's all about in my eyes. Is it's a time to grow. I'm a huge believer, and I think marriage is like one of the best things to just sanctify you over time. Like, seriously, just not even a year in, I can already see that. And to have that tool of sanctification daily in all sorts of different circumstances requires an open mind at the end of the day. So just being open to it, I think, is a big piece of advice I would give.
Nice.
Yeah, I would echo everything that Sam said. And, he just mentioned there too, like there are so many resources out there for like people who are heading into marriage. And we definitely tried to take advantage of those. We mentioned the book by Tim Keller, The Meaning of Marriage. And that's just a solid book, just giving a lot of insight into like, okay, what is marriage? Like, what is our purpose in this? What does God call us to in this? And so I think just like, using those resources that you can get will really give you an advantage. And I would say also, I think probably the top piece of advice, or the most frequent piece of advice we were given when we were asking about marriage advice, was communication. Probably no surprise. And, I think going off of that too, expectation is a big one as well. I think when you step into marriage, communication is a huge thing. And so just communicating if you have expectations, and not just assuming that, your husband or wife will know what you're thinking, how you're feeling. They're not going to know unless you tell them. And so
you can't read my mind.
Yeah, right. But so I think expectations and communication are just really big.
You bet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love that, what both of you bring up about sort of like preparation, that there is preparation to be done. And then, it is very similar to the time that we've all spent in class. Like you spend time studying, and there's a lot of knowledge that you can get. There's a lot of advice that people can give you from their experiences that's super helpful. But it is really different than stepping into the actual thing, stepping into your actual field of study and taking those resources, taking that advice and applying it and contextualizing it to you, to your work experience, to your marriage experience. Like, you can do a lot of preparing, but until you do it, you just don't know.
Yeah, that's so
right.
true.
It's a journey that you get to take together. And Ashlin, Sam, thanks so much for talking through these things. I just commend you to continue the work that you are doing, the steps that you're taking to do this together, encouraging others who come along after you in the marriage process, and being good examples to the people around you, and sticking with it. So many people will just encourage you to cancel. This is tough. This isn't what I signed up for. And those are seasons. Some of them are really short, some of them are really long, but they are seasons. And the relationship you have together is one of the prime examples that we have of the commitment that Jesus has to us. Unflinching, unending. He's gone through some hard seasons with us and for us. And he never stops being committed. And I commend you to continue leaning into the example of Jesus and living that out for each other and for the people around you, and to keep growing and making mistakes together and figuring it out together. And thanks a lot for being willing to share and to go in a completely different direction than what I really prepared you for. This is very top of mind kind of stuff that we went through, and not really our prepared questions. So thanks a lot. I appreciate your time, your wisdom, your experience, and just for getting to hang out with a couple of really fun people has been great.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Yeah, this was so
appreciate
fun.
it. Thanks so much. Yeah, it was awesome.
I've already said this a number of times as we've wrapped up previous episodes in this series, so forgive me for repeating myself again, but it seems to me that intentionality really is key for successfully navigating relational transition. Do you want to end well with your friends and bless each other into the next phase of life? Make a plan and be intentional. Do you want to set yourself up well for developing relationships in the place you land after graduation? Be intentional. Set aside consistent time to meet and follow up with people. Do you want to have a good experience when you're moving back home, or developing an adult relationship with your parents, or learning to communicate effectively with your spouse? Be intentional. Be purposeful, be proactive. For most of us, these things don't just happen without any effort. It's like the dream that we've all had of developing really nice abs. Turns out, sitting and wishing for it doesn't work quite as effectively as planning a healthy diet and following a thoughtful exercise routine. And you can take my word for it, because I'm the dad bod poster child. Now, obviously, I'm oversimplifying a bit. Each of your circumstances will require a little more nuance than just make a plan and try hard. Go back, listen to these episodes again for more specific advice and guidance. Check out the different resources that our guests recommended. But seriously, I really do think that a lot of the failure that we tend to experience around these things actually can be avoided by making a thoughtful plan and consistently implementing it. And I hope that these conversations over the last few weeks have blessed you and have helped to make it feel way more possible to successfully navigate these relational transitions. Sam and Ashlin, thanks so much for joining us this week and for helping us wrap up our series. Your first year of marriage is helping other alumni like you get a healthy start on their own upcoming transition into a marriage relationship. Blessings to you, and enjoy celebrating that first anniversary in a few months. All right, that's the official end to this series, but it doesn't mean that we're done supplying you with helpful input on relational transition. Next week, we're going to revisit an episode from last year about another important transition that some of you will be making, and that's transitioning from single life in school to single life after graduation. What does it look like to continue developing a healthy perspective on singleness? Next week, we're revisiting my conversation with Bridget G. about her book, Single Just Because, and what it means to view singleness through the lens of a discipleship relationship with Jesus. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in the after, alumni. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today, alumni. If there was anything that you learned, really enjoyed, or that encouraged you from today's episode, would you send us a DM or tag us in a story? We'd love to hear about it. You can find us at After4Pod on Instagram and Facebook. And if you haven't already, take just a second to unlock your phone and subscribe to the podcast. If your platform lets you, leave us a rating and a review. And if you like what we're doing here, share us with your InterVarsity or other post-graduation friends. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you in the after, alumni.